Most people don't realize this, but the life you are living right now isn't controlled by luck, money, or your background. It's controlled by one silent thing you carry with you every single day, your mindset. And if you're watching this video feeling stuck, tired, or maybe even a little behind in life, I need you to stay with me because this story might just change the way you see yourself forever. Imagine a crowded city full of noise and movement. In this city lived a man named Daniel. Every morning, long before the sun fully rose, Daniel would sit on the same cold patch of sidewalk with a small, empty cup placed neatly in front of him. He was a beggar. People walked past him every day, a blur of busy lives. Some would drop a few coins without making eye contact, some would deliberately look away, and most never even noticed he was there at all. Daniel believed his life was already decided. He had a story he told himself over and over again, that he was unlucky, that he was forgotten, that he was simply born to suffer. Over time, these heavy thoughts became his undeniable truth. But one day, while sitting there as usual, lost in his familiar loop of despair, Daniel noticed something strange. This man didn't rush. He didn't have that look of pity that Daniel was so used to. He simply looked at Daniel, really looked at him, and asked a question that would echo in his mind for days to come. Do you believe this is all your life can be? The question hit Daniel harder than hunger ever had. It was so direct, so unexpected. Before Daniel could even begin to form a reply, the man added gently, "If this story is already speaking to you, take just a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We create these stories to remind people, just like you, of the hidden power they carry inside." Daniel didn't understand why, but those words, that simple question, stayed with him long after the man walked away. The man's name was Ethan. And the next day, Ethan came back. But instead of giving money, Ethan gave Daniel something far more valuable: conversation. He listened, he asked questions. And then he said something Daniel had never, ever heard before. "Your problem is not your situation," Ethan said calmly. "Your problem is your thinking." Instantly, a wave of anger washed over Daniel. He wanted to argue, to shout, to point at his worn-out clothes and his empty stomach. How could this man, standing there so clean and comfortable, possibly understand his struggle? But as the anger subsided, a quiet voice deep inside him whispered that something in those words was true. Ethan then shared a piece of his own story. He explained that he had once lived on these very same streets. What saved him wasn't a sudden miracle or a stroke of luck. It was a single, conscious decision, the decision to stop seeing himself as a victim of his circumstances and start seeing himself as a student of life. Then Ethan offered Daniel a simple chance. Not money, not charity, he offered him work. A job at a small storage facility he owned. The tasks were basic: cleaning, organizing, helping customers. Nothing fancy, nothing glamorous, just work. The first few days were pure agony. Daniel's body, weakened by years of inactivity and poor nutrition, ached with every movement, but his mind was even weaker. The old thoughts came flooding back, louder than ever. "You can't do this. You're going to fail. This is pointless." He came close to quitting more times than he could count. He was ready to walk away and return to the familiar comfort of his sidewalk. But every time he felt himself on the verge of giving up, he would remember Ethan's words, or Ethan himself would be there to say, "Don't let your old mindset decide your new future." It became a mantra, a lifeline. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to shift. By showing up every day, Daniel learned discipline. By completing his tasks, he learned responsibility. And by earning his own keep, he began to learn the most important lesson of all: self-respect. Weeks turned into months. The calluses on Daniel's hands grew thicker, but his spirit grew lighter. His voice, once a timid mumble, became clearer and more confident. His thoughts, once a chaotic storm of negativity, became calmer and more focused. The biggest change happened in his internal dialogue. He stopped saying, "I can't," and started asking, "How can I?" That single, subtle shift in his thinking changed everything. It was like a key turning in a lock he never knew existed. As he began to see himself differently, so did the world around him. People at the storage facility began to trust him. Customers would ask for him by name. Small opportunities started to appear, seemingly out of nowhere. Not because the world had suddenly changed, but because Daniel had. One evening, after a long day of work, Daniel stood in front of a small, cracked mirror in the room he was now able to rent. He looked at his reflection and realized something incredibly powerful. He was no longer the same man who had sat on that cold sidewalk. The biggest change wasn't his clothes or his job or the fact that he had a roof over his head. The biggest change was invisible. It was his belief system. He finally understood, in his bones, that thinking small keeps you small. Thinking that you are stuck guarantees that you will be. And thinking big, believing in possibility, opens doors you never even knew were there. Years passed. Daniel's life was completely transformed. He had worked his way up, saved his money, and eventually became a partner in the business. He had a home, friends, and a sense of purpose he never dreamed of. One day, he found himself walking past that same street, that same corner where he had once begged for coins. And there, he saw another man sitting on the sidewalk, with the same look of fear and doubt in his eyes that he remembered so well. Daniel stopped. He didn't have pity in his eyes. He had understanding. He sat down for a moment and shared his story. He told the man about Ethan, about the job, and about the war he had waged within his own mind. Before leaving, Daniel looked at the man and said, "If my story has helped you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else who needs to hear it, someone who needs a little bit of hope." And then he looked directly into the camera, as if speaking to you, and said,